different.
Okay, so-
I mean, that was just for the sake of argument,
all
yeah.
right. This is
Yeah, 2,000.
appraisal we did.
Afterwards. Oh, I was
Property.
like
Right.
stressing about that.
So we
I'm
don't
glad.
even, we're not even looking at this.
Right, but I'm just saying, if you were going to
No,
compare
that's-
apples to
that's
apples,
okay.
assuming this was done also in
No,
2012.
this was done this year.
Just recently? Oh,
This
okay.
was just
Okay,
done.
so this is going to be a
Yeah.
little bit more.
Yeah, every 5 years we got to have.
What does it
this done.
increase? What does it increase every year? It doesn't increase much, does it? 5%?
Here's what our total lease is, but just for that piece of property itself.
Right.
Hey, Bob,
Yeah.
you want to sit up there? Then you're next to a microphone.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Because you're going to be the only guy that probably shows up.
Nope.
No, you can sit right
I can sit in the
middle.
mayor seat. I'll sit in the mayor's seat,
There you go.
and then you can sit here.
I like those seats better anyway.
I mean, what I have to say is just.
You can lock this in so it doesn't lean back.
I just needs to be on the.
I can bring him that other mic, you can sit
Oh,
there.
Yeah,
there you
no,
go. Oh,
I'll go
that's
up
fine.
here.
Okay.
Let's see what skills.
Not a more comfortable seat.
You look really good right there. Why don't you take
Yeah.
that seat?
And see, his seat's coming up this next go around, isn't it? Nancy's in his, I think.
I don't know.
Well, Jay's and mine was last year, so I think it's now. So Jeff just got back on. So Jeff, I, and Jay just got back on.
Okay.
So then I think it's, and then Mark just got on.
I got other things.
So it's
too.
Bob
Nice
and
spare
Bob and
time.
Nancy, I think, that's up.
Okay, I guess we could call the meeting to order. I think this is going to be the only board members that are in town.
Yep.
So Bobby Dolan's in Mexico, Glenn's in California, and who's missing?
And
Scott. Scott's somewhere.
Yeah, he took off Sunday.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting we had in December. That's been that long?
Yeah.
Wow.
How do these things work? Right here on the thing.
It's that thing. It's the,
All right, we're rolling.
okay, I would entertain an approval of the minutes of the December meeting. And everyone here, I think, was at that meeting, except for Bob.
Except for me, I haven't been to one for about a year, literally.
Are you wanting on a motion to approve?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of our December 12th meeting in 2017. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Amendment and approval of this meeting's agenda. I think I'd like to move this North Harbor parking. We've been talking about it, and Scott Newman was the one that was really up on this or had issues with it. So we can discuss it still, but we'll carry it over to the next meeting, if that's all right with you guys, so we can get his input in before we go to the assembly with a recommendation.
Works for me.
Sounds good.
Is there anything anybody wants to add to the agenda? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the, I'd like to accept the agenda as a guide so we can change things as we go along, if that's all right with you guys.
Sounds good.
So it's been moved. Get a second?
I did second.
Okay, second it. Okay, all those in favor of approval of this meeting agenda as a guide, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? So, okay, I'm going to turn this over. I don't know if you guys want to do an election of the officers without more guys being here. We could do this next time, or we could do it now. It's up to you guys.
I agree. Let's wait till we've got a bigger group.
Yeah, I think
it's
so.
most comfortable.
So we'll do that next time. Is there any visitors' views unrelated to the agenda? Any visitors' views related to the agenda? Bob.
Okay, my name's Bob Volk, and I represent Pitch Marine Services, and I just wanted to talk briefly about the land exchange that we would like to do with the city. And what I handed out earlier was 2 pages or 2 different things of the properties, and it was just to show you guys what the square footage was of each property And just to get an idea of what we're exchanging. So, and Petra Marine's view on this is, we're really for it, of course. I mean, it will help our business, and it just makes sense to us. So I feel, or Petra Marine feels like this is a win-win for the city, because it sure sounds like the city needs this for the harbor department. So to me, it's a win-win ordeal. So last Friday, I actually, and I've been talking to the owners of Petra Marine about this, and I had suggested a couple different options, and maybe it will help with the decision-making or whatever. And one of them was the values of both of these properties. There's a difference in value. And the property that we own, the Union Oil facility, is worth X amount of dollars, and the property we lease the city is worth X amount of dollars. And that difference is roughly $100,000. I don't know the exact number, but it's right around $100,000. So what I suggested to Kurt Lindsay, who's the owner, is because over the years we've also been talking about a dolphin going towards the ferry terminal. And I know this is kind of leading into a different subject, but Petra Marine is willing to take that monies, that say $100,000, and give it back to the harbor or the city to make that dolphin happen. And if that dolphin is if the city doesn't want to do that dolphin, which I think, to me that would be a big plus for the whole community, is if there was a dolphin there. We could get bigger ships and whatnot. But if for some reason the city does not want that, the other suggestion that I made is that maybe what we could do, so there's no cash back and forth, is that the existing lease, which we lease the dock and the land where the float is and the pipeline corridor, and that would totals, I believe it'd be like $45,000, dollars a year. What we would do is over a 10-year period, if the city would want to take that off of our lease that we pay over a 10-year period. So say $100,000 would be $10,000 a year off of what our lease is. That is the other option. But the main option to us would really help with the dolphin, because the Lindsays, they care about communities. They know that it would benefit us. They know it would benefit the harbor. It would benefit the downtown businesses. It would benefit everybody, because I think we could get bigger boats with more people or more activity in here. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about this. And just to let you guys know that Petra Marine is really behind this 100%, about doing this land exchange. And I really, truly believe that it would be good for both parties. So anyway, if there's any questions.
Do you know what the estimate cost of the dolphin would be? Is it $250,000? What was the number we were looking at?
Well, depends on what you're going to build there. We originally came up with a cost. This was in 2012, and I think it was about 200. But I don't know if that involved a catwalk. Catwalk, that might have included a catwalk. That might have included, if we were just going to do just a couple of 3 pilings out there, or, just depends on what we design. So, but $100,000 go a long way, or 100, whatever the number is, would go a long way towards it.
Right. I feel that's real generous of Petro to come up with options like that. That's really, really helpful to us. So you're going to be here for the whole meeting. We're going to discuss this under new business as well, and might have some questions, so that would be good.
Yeah,
sounds good. Yeah. Thanks for that, Bob. Okay, I guess we'll talk about this more here in a little bit, but we'll go to the staff report.
Okay, well, it's a little shorter than the last one, just because it's been just a month since we had our last meeting. So, just kind of overview of the staffs. That's first of the year. Now things are kind of kicking off. We're still staggering some vacation time and holidays. A lot of snow removal, as you all know. And we're just going through regular winter-type activity when it comes to maintenance. We did start a survey of the South Harbor piling zincs, the anodes on them with Mike Bangs. And what I'm trying to do is we replace those, or we put those in, actually, initially put them in about 10 years ago, and we figured we'd see how they are at the 10-year mark and be able to have something to compare them to then in 5 years from now. So we're having Mike dive on them, take a little video, make some, take some camera shots of them so that we have something to compare, like I said, in 5 years from now. South Harbor feasibility study, we're working on that. I actually am going to participate in a teleconference on February 1st, explaining to a group that is getting their masters for the Army Corps on needs of a shallow draft harbor. So they picked me out of the country to represent shallow draft harbors, and so since I've been through a couple of different projects with them, I think that'll go well. Then down to miscellaneous. If you look in your packet, I included a copy of the cruise ship schedule that we're going to work off of. We've pretty much got it. I think it's secured. Started out with a harbor, and then we threw it at Bob, and he looked it over at Petro, and then we turned it over to Dave Berg and the rest of the tour ship company. So you can kind of look at it, 3 pages. It has the legend in the back, and the colors are, the yellow is the drive-down facility, the peachy color is the port dock, and the green color is lightering. So you can see that we are taking a few more stops at the drive down. After our conversation last meeting with Dave Berg, we felt, okay, let's try a little bit more. I think the fleet isn't going to be all that thrilled about it, but we kind of concentrated it on Tuesdays. And our 2 peak days for tour ships are Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Bob graciously is handling the Quest on Fridays so that we don't have to tie up the drive down when the entire fleet is in. Traditionally, we have the gill netters and the seine fleet using that facility during the summer. And Tuesdays, the gill netters are still fishing. So we figure we don't only have half the fleet to argue with, versus Fridays, the gill netters and the seiners are both home, and we'd have the entire fleet. So it's kind of the partnership we worked out with Petro. On Fridays, the Chichagof Dream is only going to be there probably for, the Safari Quest is only going to be there for a few hours. They're going to spot a storage van up at the drive down approach, and so they need to come and go from that weekly just to get some of their supplies in and out of that container. So we blocked them for 4 hours. They're going to pay a daily on top of their moorage. So that's the way I can sell it to the fleet too, is that, hey, they're doing a special deal, but they're also paying for it over and above their moorage versus just coming and going at it as a loading zone or as a permit like the fleet does. So hopefully I'll be able to sell it. I'm sure I'll get a lot of complaining, but that's the way it is. And then on Fridays, if you notice, the American Constellation, which is that great big ship that we just cannot handle in the harbor anyplace, Bob's going to take. But they want to stay. They want to come in like late at night, just right before midnight, and then stay kind of through almost 2 days. And so we offered to just tell them that they need to be to go to anchor on the second day, and then they can come to the harbor via their lighters. If Bob has has a reason to need the space. He said that he would deal with them on a trip-by-trip case basis, and if he didn't think that they needed to move, they wouldn't have to. So again, we're just kind of trying to be flexible with everybody. So any questions on that?
Yeah, I have one question that I was curious, is if we, hypothetically, if we had that Dolphin, would that, more of these vessels tie up at the port dock would still allow room for other activities at the dock?
Yes. And that's why I've, over the years, wanted this Dolphin, because these ships could still utilize the city dock, but we could also run our business on the upper dock with them tied up to that Dolphin. Because there is a lot of times, and I talk to them every year, every cruise ship that comes into us. If we're busy, if the Seine fleet is in town, I ask them to pull off the dock until after hours, and then they come back. They'll tie back up to the dock, or they'll, raft their passengers back on the boat, when they go out to anchor. So that, and so that's what, that's how we've done it. We did it with Cruise West that way, and it worked really well way back. But these boats, as we can see, they're getting bigger. And if we want these bigger boats to stop here and buy supplies, and, we want them because they have to buy fuel. If they stop, if they tie up to that dock, they buy fuel. That's part of because we're a fuel dock, we're not a cruise ship dock. Or at least 150 feet of it is a fuel dock, and 28 feet of it is a city dock of the lease agreement. So anyway, yeah, I think, like I said, a Dolphin would be a big plus for the whole community. So anyway.
Yeah, thanks.
So, what's the full length on the face of the floating drive down?
It's 180 feet, and then we have pilings at 5 feet off the ends, so we say it's 190 feet.
So it can hold that 207?
Yeah, it can hold it very well.
And
the problem we have with that, it's a nice size, but we can't go any closer to the airplane float. So if we overhang, like say we get the American Constellation that's, roughly 280 feet, that all has to go off of that northern end, which really cuts off the egress in and out of the South Harbor.
Yeah. And on the inside, the two berths on the inside of that, what's the length on that?
About 64 feet apiece, yeah.
Cool. That's just
yeah.
Thank you.
It's about a third there on the end.
So it'll only be the dock face, the drive-down face that gets used?
Yeah.
The inner parts?
Yeah.
Does anyone do they have current restrictions for tying up in the Narrows? Does anyone have any problems mooring with the tide running, or?
Only when the fuel barge, their approach, they have to have the Narrows pretty clear. They can't have big boats anchored. They're swinging all over when the fuel barge makes the approach into us. But, that's, maybe half a dozen times during the summer months when the cruise ships are here. So that's the only critical time that I see.
And I know when we have the French one, they always have they anchor, but they're always running on the anchor. They're standing by, and they have it in gear the entire time, keeping it so she doesn't swing out, because that's 400 and some feet swinging out into the Narrows.
The one thing that occurs to me is when the dock face is being tied up with the cruise ship there, if maybe the harbor staff could be a little more putting the feet to the fire to the people who are there using those two inner spots, which become pretty valuable. I know sometimes people get used to hanging out there pretty relaxed in the winter, and I don't know, have you found any?
Well, the trouble we had primarily wasn't so much with the fleet, it was more with the servicing of the cruise ship. By the time you get, like, Petra will take a truck down there, and then you got Charles Davis involved, and then you get, Dave Berg, and he's picking up recycling, and then you get the people that are taking charters out on the inside. And so really what we ended up having more issue with is just kind of corralling the tourship people to that side rather than spreading all over, and then, because then you got Norwegian dancers down there with their bikes and they throw their kick, stand up right in the middle, and, so yeah, it comes pretty much a full-time babysitting job to keep everybody kind of, on the same page. We try and it's an educational process too. It's not that you can just say, okay, tie up there. We have to go down there prior to every landing and put out all of the barricades that tell people you can't tie up here. And then when somebody does tie up there because they don't see the barricade or notice it, and then got to go chase them off because you got a tour ship that's looming, 50 yards off. So yeah, it's a pretty full-time gig too. But that's why we collect $500 from them.
Will you post this for everybody?
We run it annually in the newspaper about 6 times all summer long. So yeah, we post it at the tops of all the ramps. I mean, again, that's part of our babysitting. We put it on a barricade at the top of the ramp in the South Harbor, in the North Harbor, in the Middle Harbor, whenever there's a tour ship coming. So, yeah, people, I think, just get kind of blinded to those, what's she preaching about now?
This is something that I could add into my books for my
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the reason why we really tried to concentrate on having one day and, having it pretty well organized where it's not going to be, if they just remember it's okay, Tuesdays and Fridays, kind of a thing, so.
They allow dancers down on the dock?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that
the
like a
kids running
liability?
down. No. They don't, yeah.
They wearing life jackets.
Life jackets?
They ride their little bikes down there. It's great. I mean, I love it. It's the first job a lot of kids in town have.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Anyway. We haven't ran over anybody with a fuel truck yet.
Okay, so going down my list here, just a shout out that the drive-down permits are for sale. We've sold, last year we sold about 230, and this year we've already sold 120. So we're creeping up on that here, and it's just a month into the year. We're working on the budget. If you look at your packet, I put in a copy just for your information of our code. And if you turn to page 2 of this, it looks like we're going to do away with a float side moorage rate just because we don't have that really a float side area anymore. I remember in the old days we had the southern float, the North Harbor there that ran past Piston and Rudder, and people got a cheaper rate if they weren't in a stall, but we don't have that anymore. So we got rid of that. Then if you swing over to page 12, that's where the real meat of the proposal starts. If you remember, I've been talking about this for about a year. After our comprehensive plan was done, where we had the waterfront master plan, and the Northern Economics did a rate study as part of that waterfront master plan, and this is what they suggested. Across the board, 12% increase to the harbors to get us moving in the right direction. They felt that our rate structure was pretty good, and that if we just increased it a little bit, and then we'd have to talk about annual up, maybe a 2% increase over and above this later down the pike. But initially to come up with a 12% across the board. So what we took, one first step at that is we did away with the 10% prepayment. You get 10% off if you prepay your mortgage a year in advance. So we did away with that to make it easier for Jody and her team. And so we were able to reduce the mortgage increase to 9%. So as you look on page 12 and 13, the rate increases, the first number is like, if you look at the 18-foot, it's per year, $37 per year. And in the parentheses would be what the monthly rate charge would be. So if you flip over to page 13, it's the rest of the stall lengths, and that would be per year and then what it would break out into based on 12 months. So 9% increase on all the moorage. There in the middle of page 13 is our little 20-foot stalls in the South Harbor. We all know that those are kind of a grim situation down there because of all the siltation. So we're maintaining, giving everybody a really good deal down there, kind of a half-price deal if you pay a year in advance. So we are retaining that year in advance prepayment there, and you get it for $31. It breaks out to $31 a month, but again, you have to prepay the entire amount. So it'd be $375 or something like that. And just to compare to Wrangell and some of the other southeast communities, just so that you know, Wrangell they break theirs out into 0 to 30, 31 to 55, 56 to 100, and 100 foot and above. So the meat of theirs is the 31 to 55. They are charging 56 cents for transient a foot. And the key there is that if they have to bill you, they double the moorage. So, and I know I got a lot of calls from our folks who were shocked at that because they're not used to, that happening here. So anyway, that's the way they kind of get you and get a little bit higher moorage rate over there. Sitka is currently at $1.03 a lineal foot. And they are proposing a 5% increase this next year. But it's $1.03 for under 80 foot. Over 80 foot, it's $1.75 a lineal foot. Per day. So monthlies would be in the upwards of $17 to $26 a foot for the month. So they're quite high. Ketchikan is at 76 cents a foot and $8.51 a foot for the monthly. And then Juneau, they have a kind of a different breakout as well. They're at 55 cents a foot a day, and unless you're a fishing boat. And then under 65 feet, you're paying 75 cents a foot. Over 65 foot, you're paying $1.50 per foot. So we are proposing 72 cents, and I feel really good about that because all of a sudden we used to be the second highest to Juneau. All of a sudden Ketchikan and Sitka have really shot past us. So we're proposing as part of this increase 12% that the transients will be at 72 cents a foot. And then the way we do it here is we just calculate out 10 days in a calendar month, so they'd be paying $7.20 a foot for the calendar month. So anyway, and we just bill them at the end of the month, and if they don't pay the month, there's a little service charge, but we don't do any doubling of anything or like other places do. Because in Sitka, they do that as well. Not only are they $1.03, if they have to send you a bill, it's $2.06 a foot. So I know you probably deal with this with your tender fleet and your fishermen over there, but
That's why they're all going to anchor out this year.
yeah, a lot of guys do. So
Always do.
anyway, so I feel good about that. I'm always kind of nervous about that transient rate as well as our mortgage rate. Yeah.
Can I get a copy of that, of what you just said, what Wrangell rates are and what Sitka rates are, and that stuff? Because that's great ammunition for when people come up to me and go, how come my mortgage is so high? And I always try to tell them that when I was in Seattle, I was paying $1,000 a month for my boat down there.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
it's
this
kind
is
of
cheap. This is one of the cheapest,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, that way.
It's a little different when you start getting into the, transient versus permanent. I know a lot of places give breaks to their permanent rate holders or rate stall holders. So I'd have to look into it a little bit more. But on the transient level, we're going to won't be the top anymore, which is kind of cool. So then on page 14, it kind of breaks out again. It's across the board 12%. We're cleaning up a few things like the launch ramp fee. Again, we're going to, instead of persons launching vessels For the commercial use, which would be Rockies Marine and those guys, they usually just come get a annual permit, which is $250, so it's going to raise to $280. So we'd said, well, the one time, every once in a while, Honda, the Petersburg Motors will launch boats, and instead of paying $10, we're going to get them to do 1/10 of what the commercial is. So clean that up a little bit. The commercial drive-down dock, that's going to go from $2.50 up to $2.80, again, the 12%. But really, we won't see much of that until the 2019 year, because they buy it on a calendar versus our year goes from July to July, fiscal year. So, down there on page 15, the tourship fees, those are going to go up to from $400 to $450, and from $500 to $560. Let's see. All the other things. So I just wanted you guys to have a copy of that and to know that I'm moving forward on those rate increases. So I don't know if you want to talk about it or argue about it, or if you want to put it under, throw it under new business so you can vote it up or down.
How about storage fees?
Huh? Yeah, they're going up 12%, so it's going from 24 cents to 26 cents a square foot.
How does that compare with other communities, do you know?
I really don't know. I don't know how many other communities have storage for gear storage like we do. I don't know that there's that many that do. Oh.
Hey, John, the question for you, what's your rates out at your yard now? I should know this, but I don't.
There's so many variables, I can't give you an exact cost, but I think all the storage businesses in town base it on, what does the city charge?
Exactly.
To try to remain competitive with that.
Like to stay a little under us, so.
So you're writing the book.
Yeah. No, and I realize that. I mean, we're kind of, if you find other places to store things, go for it, so.
What are the docking fees for tour ships in other communities? Do you have a ballpark if we're in that?
Yeah, we're second to Juneau in that. And I can't imagine with a little $50 hike and a $60 hike we'll change that. Juneau's still higher than us, but we're higher than everybody else. They have larger facilities, so they don't have to jockey around so much of the commercial. They have dedicated areas for tour ships.
Do we have much empty space to lease? Are we pretty much?
No, we have stalls available in the 40-foot class, 42-foot class. We have a fair amount, maybe 15 stalls. Everything else is full. So.
How about storage space?
We have storage space because of the approach. It's full now, so we're probably going to start looking at doubling up, doing a second row along that southern side, just because people are seeing that it's so much easier to come to the bulkhead and arrange a time versus going to Petro and making sure that they are okay with using the city dock there. But we do have, increased space there behind Weekon at our port storage, just because a lot of guys have started to move over, just because it's easiest, more convenient.
Because it's all the same price.
It's all the same
Everyone's
price.
going to move to the.
Yeah, and there's certainly still people that are using behind in our port storage area, but, we kind of hope that at some point the shipyard will start to look fondly at that area and maybe look at a long-term lease. Or maybe the Coast Guard.
Had another observation. I got one of those shocking little bills from Wrangell, and it left a really bad taste in my mouth because I got in at night, I left in the morning. I could never get a hold of anyone, and so you don't know what you owe. So how can you pay what you don't know? And I just hope we can learn from that. That some of these people that come through, they might be looking at doing more than just stopping for the night. Someday they might want to come and do some business, and pretty important to leave a good impression and just keep the harbor staff, people
I think
Sure-
that's,
I'm sure
one
they
thing that,
understand. I know you get it, and
Yeah.
I usually hear good things, but it's a customer service
yeah.
role, not
I think
just-
that's, very important to always make sure that we have that 24-hour coverage. That's the one thing they don't really have in Wrangell. Their offices closes at 4, and they have a guy on till 11.
That would have solved it, I guess, but.
Yeah. We're open for business. A lot of communication. So. Anyway, so that's with that. Then moving on to just a few other things. The mayor and Liz Cabrera are in Washington, D.C. right now, and they're talking about the Coast Guard, and they're talking about, which, might be coming into play as we have the conversation about a dolphin. If we're going to be losing the Coast Guard, then maybe that's a real good way to recapture some of that. Business in town is putting tour ships out in that general area. They're also talking to the Army Corps. And I got a couple of texts when they're there. Liz Cabrera, again, and the mayor are there, discussing some of the situations with the harbor. One of the things I've tried to impress upon our senators and our congressmen is that we need to have a Southeast standard when it comes to general dredging comparables for our spoils, and they're having conversations about that because I've got a few texts from Liz asking how to, who's responsible for that and that kind of stuff. So I hope that conversation actually takes a foothold, and we would be able to, what that'll turn into is us being able to have a decent comparable so that we could maybe in the future use our dredge spoils. Currently, our dredge spoils come back many times always come back as being toxic because they're compared to the Columbia River. We don't have a set standard in Southeast Alaska, and so our soils are inherently different than the Columbia River, and so they come back as toxic. Well, there's things like arsenic and stuff like that are just in our soils, and so if we had a local comparable, then they would say, okay, well, now you can use that fill like in the we were able to use the South Harbor fill as the first part of the approach to the drive down. We couldn't do it then when we were dredging the North Harbor to use the second part of the drive down approach because they were contaminated or they were toxic. So we're hoping that maybe the dredging spoils from the South Harbor will come back clean enough to be able to use out in Scow Bay. And if that's the case, then the Corps would be in favor of that because it's going to save them a bunch of money when it comes to doing the dredge there. So hoping to move a little forward on that. Liz is also there talking and trying to drum up some money for Scow Bay, so we'll see. But anyway, they're there, and I think we'll be back on Thursday. So I think that's all I have on my.
How's the security cameras going?
They're doing really well. We're gonna buy another maybe 1 or 2 for this upcoming year. So it'd be in the fall. Add a few more. Our system is capable of handling like 200 cameras. So we have 9 now. So.
Is there any at Scow Bay?
No. That gets to be a little tricky because the units have to be within line of sight of our building. They're the 2 antennas that are on our building that provide the Wi-Fi, the support for it, the signal for it. So Scow Bay is around the corner, so we'd have to have a different system or a repeater somewhere that, bounced it around Turnpoint.
If we could have a line of sight, how far would it go?
I'm not so sure about that. I don't really know. Right now it's going out no problem to the port dock. So.
This might be a question for Ben. Are we losing stuff out at Scow Bay, like through people stealing stuff? Any of our
we only have things out there that are heavy.
Smart.
But there's a trailer out there with a cable to something.
Thanks.
We've outsmarted, because yes, we did lose a considerable amount of stuff, so we've remedied that.
So, does anybody have any questions for Glo? I hear there's some talk through the community about ways of generating money by putting a property tax on the fleet. Just food for thought. And more than one person has mentioned that publicly.
And I hope, if you're in favor of it, great. If you're not in favor, I hope you remind them that your, boats are taxed, fuel tax, and your or sales tax, and your mortgage, and every bait order, and your raw fish tax. So your comeback is you're pretty well taxed. 3% right off the top every delivery is.
And the community gets half that back.
Yep,
So
and the
that's,
community gets
it's a
half
big
of that
plus
back,
for
so.
that part of it.
I hear that a lot from the older people.
That's our argument.
Yeah. The only people that aren't paying.
Anyway, that might be something that we could have a list of taxes that we already pay to show people. Jeff?
Yeah, I think the city manager was compile all his list on the meeting of the 5th. And I don't know if we're going to have discussion at that meeting about if we want to push some of those ideas forward and see if those are worth pursuing. But I think those were his ideas, that he compiled everything and see what the looking at.
Is that all personal property, or is that just the boat? Or is
I
it the
think it was
fishing
all
gear?
I think it was the 3 days of the public hearings that we had.
Right. But I mean, what are we asking? What are they asking for? Is it a property tax on just the boats, or is it all the commercial gear that's involved with the boats?
I haven't spent a lot of time in depth.
I see. Yeah.
I've read them, but I haven't really spent any time.
That's curious.
There's a lot of different communities around the state that do that personal property tax, and it's everything from a outboard to a car to your boat or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but that's kind of a can of worms that I want to see opened up. But anyway, let's see, what do we got next here? New business. Okay, we have this North Harbor parking issue that Scott had brought up that I think we can discuss it if anybody has anything they want to discuss, but we should probably wait till there's more of us and that Scott's here, so before we make any recommendations to the assembly. But any thoughts on North Harbor parking?
Well, we should probably wait for Scott, but I think one of the things that I found out yesterday in our little tour that we did was how expensive it was to actually create that parking spaces. That I don't remember the number, but it was.
Is that 40 grand?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it down to about $32,000 a spot. If we were to put in a $2.5 million bulkhead at the North Harbor, divide that by 56 spots, we'd figure we'd get, earlier attempts where we thought about purchasing the old First Bank building, taking it down, turning that into a parking spot, and I think we figured the cost of that would be about $17,000 a parking spot. So those are kind of the two spots that really need parking, and pretty expensive.
Some pretty expensive stuff. But I have no problem tabling it, wait until Scott.
Okay. How many spots of parking would we gain if we got rid of the containers in the Middle Harbor, just approximately?
Well, probably 10.
Seems like it would be of benefit to not have those containers taking up valuable parking spaces, that's for sure.
What's 10 times 32,000?
Right?
John?
Would this discussion include the parking on street along North Harbor?
I think that's what he wanted to concentrate on.
And who has the final jurisdiction? Assembly, I assume?
Yeah.
And would planning and zoning enter into this?
I
think it would be the assembly.
mean, they could kick it to planning and
input.
zoning, but.
Input from the local businesses that utilize them as well, like Napa, a bank, or whatever. I don't know, I imagine there'd be some issues with it, but I think that's what Scott was leaning towards, is to secure parking spaces for the harbor users, but
That's 4 hours in the sun, it's 4 hour parking. Right?
Yeah, and that's just, we went to the city manager and said, we got to figure out something because it's, there's, liveaboard harbor users that are using it and never moving, and there's Main Street people that are using it, and the guy that wants to go down and, work on his boat is aced out. So anyway, so they said, yeah, let's
We're so lazy.
throw it at the harbor and see what you can do. And so we keep asking the police if they want to take it over, and they say, oh no, you're doing a great job. So.
And so this committee would then be the venue for different opinions between the merchants and all the different users.
Yeah, I'm going to have, I think, a far different opinion of than what your member Newman has. So I think everybody has a little bit of an opinion, and so.
Yeah, well, we'll discuss it at our next meeting when we get more members here.
I don't have much street cred about the North Harbor. I've only been there 38 years, so.
Well, one time, wasn't
We're
it
late.
for harbor users only along that stretch? Was that the way it was?
I think
I think so.
no, I don't
That's Main
think it was
Street.
always.
It belongs to Main Street. It doesn't even
Right.
belong to the harbor.
I thought there was an issue with,
Public parking.
you got a parking permit from Stromdahl.
I think he tried that, but I think quickly the Main Street and the adjacent business owners put that one to bed.
Yeah.
And I tried to get on the harbor board and didn't win. Got on the assembly, never won one yet, so.
Keep trying.
Okay, so we'll put that on,
I'm almost done.
on our communication or discussion items for our next meeting. Okay, next up.
But it would just be nice to, if you guys are thinking about it and kind of coming up with some creative ideas, I think that would be just trying to get you guys thinking about it. And we're willing to listen if you guys got some good ideas. I mean, we're patrolling it hourly now, so we can't do much more than that. Anything else would probably be less for the harbor staff.
Okay. Next, we have Island Ventures LLC lease application for the Scow Bay Tidelands. And this is the temporary launch ramp. So, anybody have any discussion?
Mr. Chair? Sure. May I read a memo I got from the city clerk, and I'm in a position here where I'm the one that's applying for the lease and also on the harbor board. And so let me read these guidelines. And this was from Debbie, the city clerk. And to quote, an elected borough officer may not participate in any official action in which the officer or a member of the officer's household has a substantial financial interest unless after disclosure of the interest, the officer's participation is approved in a public meeting by the majority of the group. Borough officials shall publicly disclose their substantial financial interests as required by law. And that's the quote from the ordinance. And then Debbie goes on to give a little bit more guidelines here. We don't really have written guidelines. However, I believe that if you have any question whatsoever, if you should vote on a subject, discuss it with your fellow board members before voting. If they agree that you do not have a conflict of interest, then vote. If they are uncertain about whether you have a conflict of interest, abstain. The Harbor Board is advisory in nature, so the final decisions will come from the Assembly. If you abstain from voting on a subject, be sure the Harbor Board's recommendation to the Assembly states that you abstain from voting. So I just wanted to bring that up to everybody. And so I guess I'm asking for your guidelines as to how I would participate. I don't know if this is going to be a motion or just a discussion. The one comment I'd like to make in that this ramp would not have any, wouldn't have $1 of difference in my gross sales. It's being proposed strictly for the safety of the vessels that are being hauled, but if the ramp was there or isn't there, I'm still going to have the same number of hauls. So it really doesn't have any financial bearing on my business. So need your guidelines there as to, and I didn't, do you plan to have this as a vote?
Well, if we were to vote and you weren't eligible to vote, we wouldn't have a quorum, so we wouldn't be able to vote on it anyway. So
Right.
we're-
Well, and you're not going to be able to vote as a group as to whether or not he has a conflict of interest either, because you don't have a
Yeah,
quorum, so.
yeah.
So this could just be a
So,
discussion item.
yeah, I
so-
think you're right, Kurt. We can discuss this, but I don't think making a recommendation to the assembly we could do that right now. But what would happen if all of a sudden we were able to start developing that out there with your ramp in place?
Well, that would be addressed in the lease. All the leases for the turnaround, I have a copy of them in here somewhere, are pretty much identical. They're 5-year leases, and there is a clause in there that the lease can be terminated at any time for public use. And so the ramp, that lease would be terminated. The materials that are being used in the ramp would be personal property. And so those, if you read my application in there, I suggested that the lease would be worded such that if both the lessor and the lessee wanted to leave that rock in place, which would be used for parking, if they both agreed to that and came up with a scenario, for instance, where there would be compensation for the rock that was there that would eliminate the waste of removing that rock and putting it elsewhere on my personal property across the road, that could be negotiated. I don't know if it-
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So that would be the plan, is to negotiate before the lease goes through?
Yes.
To work it out with what's going to happen when we start to develop it? What's going to happen with that rock? Yeah, it makes sense.
I did talk to Dick Somerville about the nature of the rock that John is proposing to build through this proposal, and he said, yeah, it'd be fine to just leave it there. It's not, I mean, it just fill over the top of it. It's not like it should be removed to put bigger rock or heavier duty stuff. He said it would be fine just to leave it.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So.
And like all leases, there's liability insurance required, and the city's pretty safe, pretty well covered.
So would this be able to be used, I might imagine it would be in the negotiations, but it would be used by the public as well?
Well, no, that was the idea of the special use permit, was so that it could be a public use facility. As a lease, it would be impossible to have it as a public use facility, because there's no way you'd be able to carry the liability insurance, and the liability insurance is required by the lease.
Which, just to comment there, it's not that the other one is going away, the one that is existing, so that would be left open for the public. So the one that John would put in, it'd be on his lease, it's his, pseudo property, and it's his facility. So,
Does that ramp get a lot of use now at all from the public?
The general
ramp?
very much so, yeah. It's used a lot.
I think they have to, really time the tides
Right.
because of the grade.
It's pretty shallow.
Yeah, it's used.
But it's still very functional.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else have any other discussion about the lease?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure, Jeff.
So, John's been very patient about this special use permit that he didn't get. Is there any kind of timeline on when you might have a quorum together so that the harbor could have a special meeting so we can address John's concerns, so a recommendation can come to the assembly? What's the time frame for getting a group that could help John?
I think we could probably do that in the next week or so, because
I know, it was,
Coming back.
Reed was going to be here, but he pulled out unexpectedly, and then so did Scott, yeah, so I don't,
Bob Dolan gets back, he won't be back until April, I think.
Yeah.
So he won't be here, but I think both Scott and Glenn would be back relatively soon. I think Glenn's due back on Friday, and I don't know when Scott's due back, but I would hope that we would be able to do it in the, like within a week or so.
Wonder, are we able to do like a email vote, by this board? I mean, I kind of think that they're all in support of this.
I would
mean,
think so.
The staff sure is. I think the lease is the way to go, and I think what John is proposing is ideal. And I think generally speaking, I mean, speak your piece now is what you're, if you have problems with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think anyone.
I don't think the other two are going to have a,
I think the ordinance requires only that planning and zoning
yeah.
approve it. And the ordinance says, and it should be discussed, I don't know the exact wording, but it should be discussed by any other body.
Right.
But the P and Z is about the only committee that needs, by ordinance, where they have to pass it.
So
And they'll be meeting next week.
I would imagine that P and Z would probably ask for our recommendation to weigh in on their recommendation as far as what the harbor staff and the harbor board would feel about doing a lease like that.
I would bet that planning and zoning would like a recommendation from the harbor board.
That's,
And you kick that up to them, if they're all fine, unless they have heartache on it, they'd kick it up the line to the assembly.
yeah. Well, maybe what we could do, Glow, along your line of thinking, is to poll the board members, even if they're not here,
Yeah.
and just get get everybody's yay or nay, and then go from there.
'Cause I
But we
think-
could have a meeting next week, possibly.
Yeah, planning and zoning is meeting Tuesday, yeah,
Week
like
today.
a week from today. So it would be kind of nice to wrap this up and
Yeah.
send it, and so that they don't kick it back to us, and then you have to wait for another planning and zoning meeting to, so, and and Kurt's here as our liaison, and he's here in the conversation that he can, extend to the assembly that, from the harbor's point of view, I think it's great.
Does this violate the Opens Meeting Act to do a polling like that? Because if Glenn's going to be back on Friday, what if you just schedule a meeting for Friday afternoon? Because you've got 72 hours in which right now to advertise that, if that's what you want to do, and just hope that Glenn's here, have a 5-minute discussion or 10-minute discussion, vote on it, and then leave.
If that's what it takes to be.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to violate the
Helping out.
Opens Meeting Act or not. I don't know. Might want to look into that.
My suggestion was to talk to the city clerk.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, I'm out all week next week.
He's gone.
5th through the
Yeah.
8th.
So what about Friday?
I'm available Friday.
Okay. And you guys are going to be
I'm
here
here.
Friday?
Yeah, and we don't need we don't need the usual, this much staff report and all that. We can.
No, we can just get together
Yeah,
for
you just need to
a
advertise
special
it, I think,
meeting.
and then just get right to the point,
Do that.
vote
Just
on it,
in
and
this-
leave.
In the
5
climate
minutes,
about
10
the open
minutes.
meeting stuff, we might as
Yeah.
well just get it done the proper way, I think.
I think Glenn gets in on the afternoon jet, so it'd have to be a later meeting.
to be.
but,
It's fine.
You want me to ask him
Pardon?
real quick? Want me to ask him real quick? I'll just shoot him a text real quick.
Right, he's part
Want me
of
to
his
ask him?
lead, isn't he?
Yeah, I just took him to the airport yesterday, but I think he
Okay.
said the afternoon jet on, because he's got to come up from California, and I think he said he was going to be on the afternoon jet to get picked up. And Scott, do you know where Scott is, or?
I don't know when he's coming back.
Oh, he was coming back on Wednesday,
Oh, like tomorrow?
like tomorrow.
Oh,
Oh, well, there
I
you
can
go.
check on that too.
Yeah.
The main thing is that we have a quorum without John, I guess.
yeah.
Or is the city clerk available for her to give us some advice?
It's whether or not this violates Open Meetings Act.
Can you go see if she's there? Yeah.
Yes, we could get,
I'm just trying to save myself from doing some more stinking minutes.
You know, we think
It's a
it might,
pain.
this might look like collusion if we don't,
It's
keep it
possible to
public. No
continue a
collusion.
meeting also.
Yeah, we just.
Well, I mean, this is, I mean, nobody obviously cares because they weren't here. This was very well advertised at this
Like
discussion.
this, then everybody's doing it, you know what I mean? So, no, it's just, I mean, I don't know, you guys might be able to do it, I don't know, that's why I was just asking that
It's
question.
possible to continue a meeting on another day, the same meeting, without
Oh,
re-noticing.
that would be a good way to do it.
I don't know what you call it, adjourn.
Then we could
So you
keep it.
can put
recess.
him on the phone
It's a
right now.
recess.
and-
You adjourn it,
and
then
do
it's-
Yeah, could you call him on the phone?
You get
Could
him on the
call-
phone right now.
Sure,
and
sure, if you
ask.
could get Glenn just to get on the phone, that you can, he can't be a member of the quorum, but he can certainly vote, so he would then be a quorum.
Yeah.
Quorum. He's got 5
You
minutes.
just don't want to hang this up for John to,
While we're waiting, has anyone heard of any opposition? I haven't heard any.
Overwhelming,
There's always somebody. What?
So we have a question. We don't have a quorum to vote on John Murgis's application because John is the fourth person. But knowing that time is of the essence, can they call one of the members and say,
They
what do
should
you,
have called in the first place and been on the roll call and everything. So I would say no.
okay,
However,
Is it-
we need to wait for PEDC before we put this before the assembly anyway, and I've been told that it won't be until the March 5th meeting before we can put it forward.
okay,
I realize that means you guys have to have a meeting in February, but if you could have another meeting in February where you have a full quorum, then you could take care of it at that time.
okay.
When is the next P&Z meeting after this coming Tuesday? Is there another one
The
scheduled
problem-
for later in the month of February?
We don't want P and Z to go, well, we were going to wait until the Harbor Board weighs in on it before we weigh in on it,
Oh.
because theirs is next Tuesday. They could meet again on Friday. Can we do an extending of this meeting? Can we just
We recess for a couple
recess
days?
for a couple days till Friday?
Yeah, I think so. We could advertise that this meeting will continue on Friday
Yeah.
at a certain time. We have a 5 PM meeting already on Friday, so it has to be a daytime.
Well, we're waiting for the plane to get in.
Oh,
So it would be,
we have a special meeting at 5 PM, assembly meeting.
we could do at
4, probably.
3:30,
3:30 or 4.
yeah?
And it wouldn't take us very long to finish, just if that was the only issue on the,
I think we could make that work. We'll just send out a PSA as soon as
Okay.
this is over. Just come and see me and we'll
Okay,
figure it out.
sounds
Okay.
good, yeah.
okay,
Okay.
yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
Great, thanks, Debbie.
thank you.
Best way to do that, yep.
Did he
Cool.
get back to you?
Not yet.
No, he's probably at lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Scott didn't either, so, oh, Scott's right now. Scott
Thank
doesn't
you.
get back to
That's the-
February 4th.
Oh,
February 4th,
It'll
yeah.
have to be Glenn.
It'd have to be Glenn.
well, if the plane gets in, I know Glenn will be back.
Okay,
Maybe we should talk to Glenn, though, before we call a meeting.
Yeah.
I'm waiting, yeah.
Okay.
I can step out and give him a call.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. Does there anybody else have, or anything to address this application? You have any ideas, Bob? Or questions for John?
Well, did you talk about it in December? I haven't been in a harbor board meeting for so long, but this is that basic plan we've talked about for a long time about
Correct.
you being up next to the jetty there. and-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a great plan.
And the application, the proposal's in here.
Yeah. I was
In your
just
packet,
looking
so
at it, But it's a little hard to digest.
get all the dimensions and
Yeah,
stuff.
I think that's a good solution.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting it'd be nice to get something else going on out there, but no, I'm not holding my breath, so I think this would be a great,
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
yeah, so
But,
can't think of any negatives at all.
okay, the next discussion we will have, bringing up the trade with Petro.
Yeah, so I gave you a little packet there that has all sorts of pictures, and it has kind of a proposition paper right off the bat of what we're after. And so we have this idea out there that Petro is available. In this proposition paper, I outlined, it's a draft, so there's a few probably typos and stuff. But I kind of explained the history, what brought us to this point, why this is needed, and why it's kind of a newer idea versus when the state owned the facilities. Then I went through and gave you a kind of a history on when all of these components were brand new, and explained what the maintenance that goes into each facility. And then I talked about our harbor storage and maintenance areas that we have today. What kind of all of the different areas that we go to. And it's not just mainly, I mean, they are a lot of storage areas, but they're places that we are going to regularly, like many times a day, many times a week, we have to go to these places. And I think most of you took a tour with Ben yesterday, so you can kind of see that we're going there quite a bit. It's not just that we have the stuff stored in these various areas. And then I ended at 3 pages there with our needs. So if the Petro doesn't, if this doesn't work, we think it, from the staff's point of view, it's a great location, great facility, fits all our needs. But if we're not allowed to move forward on this, we're going to have to do something. The situation we have currently, we can't continue on the way we are. So if we don't move forward on this, we're going to be looking at building something, on our own property. So included in that little packet, I gave you a little bit of a diagram that maybe you want to pull out. And there's 2 pieces of paper, and if you butt them up together, you can kind of see the harbor, Petro's Harbor Enterprises, the lots 1 through 7, the value of that, the lease A and B over there where the little Petro gas station and the warehouse is, the trade, the difference in the price tag. I'm using the up-to-date assessed values, which since the last time we tried this, I think it's raised about $35,000. It used to be $85,000 difference. Now it's $121,000. Versus new construction. And there's some various areas that we would, if we're going to use harbor property, probably I don't like the idea of using the drive down, but you can kind of see I jotted off the area there on that diagram. It takes up about half of the drive down approach on the southern side there. I just went to Joe Bertinoli and asked what the price tag for new construction, and he said $150 per square foot is what new construction costs. I went to Reed's and asked what about a fence, or I went to Carl and Reed's about what about getting fencing, and you're looking at probably another $30,000 for that, 20 to 30,000. And so those are the kind of the costs of a new facility versus buying Petros and getting it kind of all as one package. The reason why I like Petros is it's very centrally located. It's an ideal spot to have everything in one spot instead of, some people have suggested, well, why don't, if you're going to build the approach or rebuild the approach adjacent to the harbor office, why don't you just put a building there? Well, that'd be okay for a workshop, and we could take essentially what's in the back room at the harbor office and put it out there. That would solve that part of it, but it wouldn't solve the storage, and it wouldn't solve, being centrally located. What I like about Petro is, again, it's across the street and still centrally located, not taking up valuable waterfront. I think, putting it on the approach, it wouldn't cost us for the land, but it's going to cost us getting the electric and the water and the sewer and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to take some real valuable waterfront property off of, our plate to use for other things. So regardless, we think that the Petro is a good spot for the facility. We included some pictures in your packet there, so if you didn't get the tour, you can refer to those. But if we don't go with that, we're going to have to do something. So you're looking at new construction. So the elephant is in the room that I think that a lot of people are worried about is that lease. And yeah, we will lose the $28,500 currently is what they pay for the lease of the land under the warehouse that we own and the land under the, they're leasing the land under the warehouse and the land under the little Petro station now.
Yeah, Kurt? Hey, Glenn, how many bait sheds do we still have currently over there behind Weecon's?
Oh, probably, 15.
15.
Like that.
So if we were to put this building on that drive-down approach, and Lure wants to expand. You know, yesterday we were talking about how, you know, right now we have trailers that don't need to be on that drive down, you know, that approach. That could go across the street if we had this property, you know. And because my trailer is just a little large for the road right now, but it can go, you know, with special use permits. So I think we're gonna need that space for bait sheds. So I
Yeah.
don't think we want to put a building on that approach because, you know, we need to be looking 5, 10 years down the road here, you know, and maybe a few years before Mike does want the rest of that property. But I think it needs to be available to him.
Yeah, and you know, that approach is, it's really nice to have for big equipment that can't go down the highway. You know, I know people are, oh, you can put a bait house anywhere, but you really can't. You have to, you have to get a DOT permit to transport or cut it down the middle, or, you know, it's just one of those things. We're getting boats that are coming to town and mooring because we have that drive down and we have that fill. We have 2 or 3 guys that, you know, end their season here because of that facility now. So, and I think we're going to see more and more of that as other places are not so eager to accept the commercial side of the.
I think Bob hit it on the, right on, it's a win-win for all of us, I think. You know, even though we do lose that lease, we're going to gain property tax from that property that we're leasing, but we'll gain a little bit.
In your
back.
packet, I did include information that Jody sent along for you to look. It's that little sheet here that talks about the difference, and those are the real numbers, so it's not like I'm just estimating. I think that her, down there at the bottom, it says $4,100 loss to the general fund and tax revenue, the difference in the property tax. I think she was thinking that Petro owned the warehouse, and so, anyway, I think that number's a little high. I think it's more like $3,200 is the difference. And I just remind you, this rate increase that we're proposing, that we're going to hopefully put into effect July 1, you're going to see, again, we're the only department that collects sales tax, so they're going to see an increase of $3,600 we expect from the rate increase of sales tax that you guys are paying. So we kind of are trying to, you know, help that general fund.
Yeah, Bob?
So to me, the numbers that you come up with don't make, I mean, they're not making sense, and maybe
Okay.
I'm missing something. So we just had parcel B, which was the land we lease, appraised, right? Because every 5 years,
Well, again, I'm dealing with assessed.
I know, you're dealing
Okay.
with assessment, but we're dealing with, well, and that's the part I don't understand too. We had it appraised, and it actually appraised for $285,000. And then we get charged 10%, and that's how you come up with our lease, what we pay, 10% of what it appraises for. Well, the city assessment is $235.
I think,
But
Bob,
it's still, we're still getting charged at $28,500.
yeah, I think
Which is
the
10%,
lease.
so something's,
Well, what the city, they go on assessed.
right.
Not, they go on the assessed value, not on the appraised value. So
Okay.
you're getting billed, and here it
Well, I'm
is.
just thinking of purchasing, I think it has to be appraised.
Yeah.
And I think, and if this appraisal, I'm saying it benefits the city more so than it would benefit
Oh,
for
okay.
Marine. That's, I'm not just bringing that up.
In your packet, I also included the, what we are right now paying. We're paying a total of, or you're paying a total of $66,290
For what?
in the leases, all of the leases. So the 28.5 is coming out of that.
We're paying $70,197.
Okay, it went up.
For everything.
Okay, it went up than what you gave me.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so, yeah, I
Unless
think there's
something unless
language.
there's something that's getting deducted for some reason.
We'd have
Some sort of
to-
depreciation type.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
That could be.
I'm not sure.
The numbers I got were from Jody, and that goes with code. I think this borough can't pay more than assessed value for things. They can't, I mean, that's kind of been a sticky wicket with the like we've gone to those two properties
Right.
between the cold storage and the South Harbor
Right.
before, and they want X, but we can't pay more than
Yeah.
Y, because in the code it says the borough can't pay more than the assessed value. So these are the numbers Jody gave me, what they're assessed
Yeah,
at.
yeah. Okay.
So,
I mean, that is kind of confusing if I'm going to look at it from a borough, from an assembly position here that,
what's confusing about it?
well, 285 versus 235.70.
What are you talking about, 285?
Well, I mean.
That's
this-
what the.
this
What are you
is
talking about?
That's what.
Borough
and
lease
then
lots
we
is
just-
235.
That we just had appraised.
Well,
And then, you're assessing them for 285. See, on these two pieces right here, I'm looking at this number here,
yeah,
and then this number here.
See, what we get billed
Oh.
is based off
Yeah.
of appraised value.
Can these two
of the
numbers be the
property.
same?
well, no, because I know my house is assessed for less than it's appraised for.
Okay.
So
This is the
what I'm
assessed
telling
value.
you, Kurt, is that this is assessed, and that's all the borough
That's
will
the
pay.
assessed value.
Yes, we're not going to pay for appraised value. We will pay for assessed
When
value.
you go to the other facility, it's the opposite.
So
Appraised value is
as
less.
it comes out, the way he's talking is if we either have to go with all Bob's numbers or you have to go with all of the city's numbers. If you go with all of the city's numbers, we're going to be paying more. If you go with all of Bob's numbers, we're going to be paying a little less.
Well,
I think
and
by
I didn't know
code-
how this works.
Yeah.
Because usually when you buy like a home or something,
Right.
you're going off of appraised value.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying. Is
Right.
That's why I wanted to make sense in my
Yeah.
mind how
Code
this
says you have to, the borough will only deal with assessed.
sets. Okay.
So you have
I
to,
didn't know
so
that.
throw Bob's numbers away and use what Jody has given us, which is what my chicken scratch.
Are these Jody's numbers down
Yes,
here?
yes.
Don, did you have something?
I did. I'm going to agree with Kurt on this. Putting a new building down on the ramp just doesn't make sense. When we have a building in front of us that fits your needs, it does exactly what you need it for. And I think for the guys that work, being a guy that used to have stuff spread all over the place that had to drive and pick up parts, and it's going to not only save them an incredible amount of time, but it's going to allow you to have dry storage and a workspace to do everything you need it to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way I look at it is we've got close to a $60 million infrastructure, and we're trying to maintain it out of a tool shed.
Yeah,
it
and
just
leaky
doesn't make
Connex
sense.
boxes.
Yeah.
And I think the only other question I had is walking through that yesterday, Bob, and I think you said there's something about the heat in the place. There was problems with some heat in there, and there was a bursted pipe maybe,
Yeah,
something along those lines. I was wondering if you guys have taken that into account. I don't know if that's something you guys can do in-house, get taken care of in-house.
We
or-
actually have, we've talked about how we would heat, and we are really actually considering, like purchasing a waste oil heater.
That's great.
We
Way to
get
go.
all that free waste oil, and we could
Well.
siphon off, a couple tanks. I mean, right now, we
Great
heat
way
the
to go.
baler, and they throw the doors wide open because they can't burn 12,000 gallons.
And that, funny you should mention this. I just got notified yesterday that as of February 1, we can no longer take used oil from any fishing vessels or any vessels coming to our fuel.
How much do you collect?
Probably 20,000 gallons,
Okay.
probably. Because we
So-
do the AML tugboats.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah, we
Okay,
change
okay.
their oil. and-
So we by law have to take it, the borough does.
I
So
believe so.
we're
Back
gonna-
then, we
Yeah.
were part of that.
Yeah.
But
Right.
for some reason, they're
You guys
saying
can wear
that
shorts
changed.
at work.
So right now, we're taking it, so that is a real good, it's a option, an opportunity probably for more of borough facilities to start using. We used to originally take ours to Icicle, and then it got into, they had issues with the amount, and some of the stuff that was coming was hard on their burning facility, so they quit taking it. And so the harbor purchased the burner for the baler, and so we started sending it up there, and they're maxed out using 12,000 gallons. So if we add another 20 to that,
Yeah. Jeff, did you have a comment?
Yeah, and I know you're all aware of this, but, the dolphin is a big component of this. That really helps out
Yeah.
the borough.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting chewed on by the cruise ship, by the visitor industry all the time about there's not enough space for it. And for me, the easiest short-term solution is that dolphin at the end of that dock. And if we had a way of working with Petro to make that work, it would really take a little bit of pressure off the borough. I mean, I take my hat off to Bob and the Petro guys for wanting to work with the city. I don't, there's a lot of other community organizations that help out as well, but this is stepping up and throwing some money at a project that's really going to help the borough, and it's really going to take some of the pressure off us with the visitor industry.
And it's going to help Petro.
Yeah.
It's a win.
It's a win-win. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, the other side of it too is that, I mean, we want this to happen, and we have to come up with a better situation for the harbor. But I think that what we need help is selling this idea of how we're going to recoup that $28,500. And I mean, we've done things like we're doing rate increases. We've done away with the 10%. So I feel like we've done that. But no matter what we do, raising rates or generating more income, the assembly keeps saying, well, we're going to get that anyway. The 20. They just don't want to.
I think that's, I
It's
think
just
it's short-sighted
hard.
with people saying that, because if we get more tourist ships here and the $5 per head gets put in there, and we're already looking at $30,000 increase this year from the tourist industry, but through the head tax, you get another $10,000 in the future, and another $15,000, I mean, really, $28,000, this is the big squibble?
Well,
right now,
and
it's probably over $28,000.
and it's to the harbor,
Yeah, I
which is
understand
not
that.
going to the general fund.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, again, the harbor is, we've got our ducks in order. And so that's where I just need help with the city manager and with the finance director and with the assembly selling an idea. I don't care if it's a brand-new building or it's, Petro, which they keep sweetening the pot. I just don't know
But the
how we're
idea
going
is,
to.
like Bob was talking about, the assessed
Yeah.
value, which the appraised value. I mean, we need to sort out, we don't need to sort it out, but the city manager, Petro, or whoever, need to sort out the amount of money that we're talking about, so we can all be talking about the same amount of money, not the appraised value.
Okay, well, I know for a fact that the borough has to go with the assessed. They are not going to go, I think the other point in that is that there has to be language in the code that says you can go out and buy or you can trade. That was the last hiccup the city manager said, is that there isn't, because it doesn't talk about it, I guess it can't be done, I don't know. But he said that,
But it sounds to me that Petro really wants to work with it.
yes.
And if that's the
Absolutely.
case, there is no reason in the world we shouldn't make this.
Well, there's still naysayers out there that it's really hard to convince them that this is a good move for us to make.
Well
So
advertised.
One other thought that I had is, the property that we lease where the gas station is. So if we did this whole land swap, well, couldn't we do that chunk right at the corner of the Union Oil facility and lease it out to a business that I've had, since I put those for lease signs on, there's been 3 people, but they don't want to lease all of it.
Yard?
They
Oh.
only want to lease part of it.
Storage?
No, a building, something like what, I don't, there's tons of things. For a business, you build a building, they build the building, they pay for their building, and they get charged a lease for the land that this
Just
is
like
on,
the-
like Jerry's doing, like
Wecon.
we're doing, Wecon's doing. You could take
Oh.
that chunk, and your 28,000 could come back right away with that chunk by just leasing. If you guys don't need all of that land,
Yeah, like lots 1, 2, and 3.
subdivide, subdivide
yeah.
a chunk or two out and
It's
do
5, 6.
like we did,
Yeah.
over where Chevron used to own, where it is Wecon
It's a great
and
idea.
Whitethorn and all those businesses. That was all Tideland at one time, years and years ago. So
Well, I think we have been, I think we're pretty well open for business when it comes to leases. I know John's going to lease, leases one, and potentially
Yeah.
we're leasing to Steve. I know I've had Glenn Warmack talking about leasing, so we could throw that into the pot as this could be leasable property, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say I appreciate Ben taking everybody on the tour. I wish more people would go on a tour and see exactly what the situation is. It's hard to describe it without going around and looking at these as how we're trying to maintain this facility like it is.
So the mayor asked for your opinion. And so in your agenda, it says we should provide a recommendation to this land trade. So is there anything else? I mean, I have all of this information and all of this stuff. Maybe we can get it in writing from Petro, what they're willing to, how they're willing to sweeten the pot and take that and put it on the next assembly's agenda?
Yes, and I
I
think,
tried getting that for this meeting, but
Yeah.
he just got back into town, and he said he'll do a formal letter, so.
great. And I think the idea that Jeff and Kurt can take to the assembly too is the options that what Bob brought up about leasable land, more storage area. There's a whole lot of positive things to bring to light. But I think it's important for us to try to talk to these people who are not in favor of it and try to get them to come and look at our facility and what's going on. I mean, there's some people that don't have any dog in the fight and they're still against it. It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, is there anybody else have anything to say about the lease, or how do you want to? Yeah, Jake.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just wondering, is there a way to incorporate this dolphin idea into the land swap idea? So, I mean, did Bob say, would we be willing to lower the price on this building if the city was to put in this dolphin? Because that's going to benefit both the harbor and Petro as well. I mean, is that
Well,
something that's...
what he said earlier is they're willing to take the money that the borough pays over for the property. We're going to end up having to pay them some money, and they're willing to put that money towards the dolphin.
Okay.
So that would be
So that would be, it would be nice to see it in writing,
Yeah.
as well as the 10-year.
Yep.
I like that idea,
Yep, we can get both.
all those, those suggestions. That would be great.
I just did some rough math here, and if you take the warehouse, the office, and the loading area, plus some of that area right out in front of, for parking in the front of the warehouse, and lease the rest of the land, you're going to end up with about 24,000 square feet of land to lease, and at 26 cents a foot, you're looking at almost $5,000 a month if you could load every inch of it, which you're not going to. So where's $28,000 going to come from? If you could generate $60,000 a year, roughly, I think you could find it right there.
Yeah, we have we've talked about ways to lease some of that land to people that have vehicles, that Agassiz and all that kind of stuff.
and it's already fenced and it's got security to it.
Yeah.
Just makes sense. But I think we need to push. Our job is to try to push this to the people that don't believe.
Right.
Yeah, Bob.
That's what-
Well, I already kind of knew the situation, but it was impressive, especially on a dreary, snowy day, to see the mess that the harbor staff deals with maintaining our facilities, and these connexes spread out all over. I can't imagine that that's an effective, efficient way to work.
No.
And it's got to impact on crew morale, and we've got some huge maintenance, long-term maintenance tasks, and I don't think we're adequately set up to do those. So the case for some kind of a shop is excellent, and then here I can't imagine a more how would you say? It's like that property is just perfectly situated. It's not extravagant by any means, and it's like just meant to happen. And this came up a few years ago, and I guess it always comes down to a question of how you pay for it.
And I think we figured that out.
That's a tough thing, and it's a little bit beyond Harbor Advisory Board too, but as far as the merit of this, it's just unquestionable. And if that's where people are stuck, I think we can convince them. But how to pay for it, that gets harder, but.
But I think we just heard some good ideas on how to pay for it.
Yeah.
I think we
And the
just need to-
generosity of Petro to put that back into our community.
Yeah, that is. I'm a
That
little
says a
wary
lot.
It's huge.
of acquiring that and then right away putting it to a use that doesn't go to harbor maintenance, though, because we need to see what our harbor maintenance, what it's gonna look like when they move everything there, and can they still function? I don't wanna have them chocker locked up again, because we wanna lease that out as retail space or something, so.
Here's a prime opportunity with that dolphin that Jeff keeps talking about. That doesn't just benefit Petro Marine or the harbor, that benefits Main Street.
Yeah.
Now, this is the first time Main Street, we've thought about Main Street in any of our expansions, you know? And so this will benefit Main Street, so
Yeah.
it's a win-win. And I already know how we can pay for it, the $28,000 we're leasing the land. It'll get filled, don't worry.
And cruise ship money makes a difference.
Sure it does.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Where are you
If
gonna
they
put
want
all,
to come, why not?
Yep.
Why not?
Yep.
Have something that'll welcome
Yeah.
them in.
And I don't think
To
it
a
would,
point.
it would inhibit the Coast Guard if they, you know, they could still get into their dock,
Oh, yeah.
you know, so. Well, if there's any other comments about this, we could move to make a motion to vote on this, to send in a recommendation to the Assembly. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor of sending a recommendation to go ahead and work with Petro to come up with a land swap for the Petro loading dock and, you know, the building we're talking about? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So I think you guys are going to be able to convey a lot more than, you know, of the discussion that we just had. And I hope that some of the other people that are not in favor of this get a grip and see what's going on, because it's necessary to do something.
Well, they're not making any more land, and I don't think we ought to burn up what we've already developed, you know, on the drive down for a building that we can have across the street. That land's already available.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I
ready to
agree.
go.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest, we want to do this for, to make it in time for P and Z with the lease to Island Ventures, that we recess until Friday. We could do it at Friday afternoon at, say, 4 o'clock at the latest, because there's a meeting at 5. We could just get together, make a decision on that, how we want to proceed with a quorum, and then we could just adjourn after that. That okay with everybody?
good to me. Yeah.
4 o'clock Friday.
Does that need to be moved, or?
Well, we could just recess. I can just call a recess. There's no,
Okay.
we can just recess until Friday. That's good with everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay, let's
Friday,
do that.
16th.
Thanks for
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
everybody coming. This
Wow,
productive.
I think you're sorting it out, Bob.
Yeah, that's cool.
Could just go out.
Really clear.
Now it's Jeff's and Kurt's turn.
No problem. No problem. I'll be willing to put some money down on that one.
When you come up to opposition, ask what's the alternative?
Enough to make up the difference?
28,000 is in the lease land. I'd like to go pull the tape on that, you know, and get the exact inside the chain link fence. You know, see what the exact square footage is.
Square footage is pretty close. I mean, that's not of an appraisal.
Well, I mean, I was looking at it, but you know,
To get that
doesn't
ramp
include
built.
that.
2 days.
Really good.
Is the job length of time? The core permit, several months.
Yeah, so there's a house there.
So